Hey Cornerstone, my name is Scott, and today's Cornerstone Connection is from 1 Samuel chapter 9. Now in 1 Samuel chapter 9, we see a story about Israel making a really bad trade. In fact, the worst trade in the history of humanity. They're trading away God as their king in exchange for an earthly king. Now, I know a thing or two about bad trades. When I was growing up, I used to collect baseball cards. And when I had a card that held value and I traded away for a card that was worthless, that was a bad trade. But let me tell you, that trade paled in comparison to this trade. Israel has just looked at the nations and said, we want to be like them. We want an earthly king. We want an earthly king to do our battles for us. We don't want God to be our king any longer. That is a terrible trade. And we're introduced to Israel's king in chapter 9. His name is Saul. And in verse 2 it says that Saul was a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. From his shoulders upward he was taller than any of the people. You know who that reminds me of? It reminds me of Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. Remember that absolutely ridiculous song in that movie about how great Gaston was? He was like the perfect man. Well, Israel has found what looks to be, by all appearances, to be the perfect king. He just looks like he's king material, but he's anything but. He's a very flawed and imperfect man, as we'll see later. But nonetheless, in this story, we see Saul looking for his father's donkeys. He and his servant have searched high and low, and they're about to give up when Saul's servant has an idea. He says in verse 6, "Behold, there is a man of God in this city, and he is a man who is held in honor, and all that he says comes true. So now let us go there. Perhaps he can tell us the way we should go." And through a series of events, Saul meets Samuel, the man of God. And Samuel helps Saul ascend to be Israel's next king. In fact, that theme of ascension runs throughout chapter 9. Ascension, that is going up. We see in verse 11 that Saul and his servant went up to the city. Verse 14, again, they went up to the city. And then once meeting Samuel, he escorts them into this banquet where Saul is treated like a king, and he goes to the head of the table in verse 22. And then again, that theme of ascension in verse 25 as Samuel escorts Saul to the roof of a house where Saul is treated like a king by being given a good night's rest. And shortly after, Saul is going to be anointed as Israel's next king. You know, that theme of ascension makes me think of the one true perfect king that we have, and his name is Jesus. After Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, he appeared alive to his disciples over the course of 40 days. And at the end of those 40 days, he ascended into heaven and sat down at the right hand of God. And right now, Jesus is king, and he is ruling and reigning over all things. The Apostle Paul puts it like this in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 20 through 22. He says, "God raised Jesus from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion, and above every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in the one to come. And he put all things under his feet and gave him his head over all things to the church." Think about that. Jesus is seated at the right hand of God at this very moment, ruling and reigning over all things. And that changes everything for us, his church. Today, when you go to work, you need to realize that you are going into a place that is under the authority of Jesus Christ. When you walk your community or go into your neighborhood, you are walking into areas that are under the authority of Jesus Christ. There is nothing that he is not over and above. And if you look to him as your king, that makes you his servant. And you get to represent him today to the world. King Jesus wants to work in and through you for the power and glory of his name. What a privilege that is today. And so remember, there is only one king in this world we should look to. There's only one person we should look to above all other things, and his name is Jesus. Don't trade him away for some lesser god or thing. Look to Jesus to be the one whom you serve.